But let's move now to our second keynote of the morning. And we're going to move to a French multinational company now that specialises in digital automation and energy management. Now, it concentrates on homes, buildings, data centres, infrastructure and energy industries. By combining the energy technologies, the real-time automation, the software and all the services. So from Schneider Electric, please welcome the Executive VP, Frédéric Goudemel.
Thank you. I have to say it's more easy to speak after you, Greg, than probably you had to speak right after Vadim. I'll start by you, Vadim, sharing my emotion to what you said, what you presented. Schneider has been standing with you in May. We help your company. We will help you again in this period. You have my commitment. We are not in high voltage, so a large part of what you display we don't manufacture, but for the little pieces we can manufacture, you have my commitment that we will look at what we can do. Speaking after Greg is probably a bit more easy. There will be a few themes that we will go again. Vadim, you started what we can call a real crisis, of course, an energy crisis, and in many fronts a crisis. Now, if we look what's happening in Europe, we are in a crisis as well. I mean, not as dramatic as what you presented us, but we are in a crisis. Today, our estimation is that Europe, this winter, will miss 20% of the energy supply that is needed to work and act normally. We used to share at Schneider Electric that when electricity is on, life is on, okay? We all have to face that this winter, life will not be on like we would like it to be. And it's true in Ukraine, but it will be true all across Europe. If we look at the second impact of the crisis we are going through, is that the prices are now extremely volatile compared to the inflation. By the way, we are now in an inflationary environment, but the inflation of the energy price is nothing to compare with the average inflation. By the way, look at those curves. They were started way before what happened in Ukraine, which is dramatic, but the energy crisis was built way before what happened in Ukraine. Ukraine has accelerated, of course, the dynamic around what's happening, but basically we have entered in a world where energy is scarce, despite, and that will be a large part of my pitch, solutions are available to create much faster an energy system that is much more resilient and robust. Now we should, I started by the short term because being here in Frankfurt in Europe and after the presentation that you made, Vadim, I think we all have to start by short term. Now we should not forget what has happened and what is still happening in terms of CO2 emission. You have here a few data points. We knew that to reach the 1.5 degree scenario, we had to save 10 gigaton. Today, if we look where we are not at all on a 1.5 degree scenario. What came out of the COP27 is a 2.5 degree scenario, means the commitments that we have today to transform the energy are not up to the challenge. And basically, we are on a road of saving of 4 gigaton, where we should achieve saving of 10 gigaton. So another very important data point is that we are not yet walking the talk on the energy transition. So all these are not absolutely great news, but better to start by where we are to look at how we can act on the future. So basically, there is two places on which we should act. The first thing is energy independence and security. And by the way, you said it, Greg, okay, relying on gas and fuel is probably not, even from the standpoint of energy independence and security, where we should rely on in the future. The second thing is decarbonization, because we all need to take actions to be able to less emit CO2. So basically, where can we act need to be a permanent balance between the energy security, the energy supply, and the decarbonization. we see three ways of acting around this equation. The first one is energy efficiency, and by the way, very important to know that is the fastest way. So probably this winter, energy efficiency will be the most important measure to take if you want to keep life on, okay, without forced shutdown. The first thing you can act on very quickly is, of course, energy efficiency. And I'm going to come back on that because here you have significant measures that can be taken with a significant drop of the energy consumption. The second thing is electrification. Why? Because electrification can be extremely pervasive. It can be done at all levels, and by the way, you can produce locally electricity, which is a big difference with other sources of fuel. Electricity can be produced everywhere, so electrification is always a good solution. It's not as fast as energy efficiency, but it's probably the solution for many users that will help in the future to get the right balance of local energy production and, of course, energy consumption. Last but not least, and Greg, you said it, so you gave many examples, of course, producing electricity with green energy, with renewable. We're today extremely confident that the cost of technologies make it an affordable return on investment. By the way, many of those investments in renewable energy were profitable 3 years ago, before the energy curves that I show in my presentation, so they are much more profitable as we speak, and this situation will keep going on because the cost of the green energy will go down. Meanwhile, the cost of the fossil fuel-based energy are completely unpredictable in the coming future. So basically, we see the combination of those three fundamental approaches: energy efficiency, electrification, and green energy, all across the chain of energy, looking at supply, grid, and of course the demand side. And it's important, and I will come back on that, that we combine permanently supply, grid, and demand in a world that is balanced for the future. Of course, we can do this approach only in an environment where everything helps this approach of more green, more electrification, and more energy efficiency. Of course, technology, but today we consider that technology is there and can cope and fill the needs that is for today for being an electric world. Of course, economic challenges. You've seen the price of energy. I believe the return on investment is now going much faster. Institutional, it has been a place that has been historically late in Europe, on which we see changes coming from this energy crisis, but I would pledge for accelerating institutional framework so that we really can accelerate the electrification of the entire society at all levels. Let's look first by the demand side, because of course, to look at the energy equation is better to start by the demand and then go up to the chain. If you look at the demand side, you see here the big places where today there are energy usage, and by the way, where there is equivalent of CO2 emission. Buildings, industry, transportation, they all can be electrified, all. Okay, I give here the example of buildings. Okay, you see what you can achieve when you electrify a building. First, what we see a track record of buildings that are extremely efficient and fully electrified is a drop of the energy demand between 30 to 50%. Okay, it's a mix of automation, and Greg, you presented automation in many examples, a mix of automation and a mix of the efficiency of the electricity versus other source of energy, okay? By doing so, of course, no surprise, the carbon emissions are much better. I could have put here an example in industry or an example by using electric car. This works for all the application at the demand side. So first thing, start by the demand, electrify the demand, and look at the way you optimize your use of energy to do it at the right moment. For example, why to consume energy when you have nobody in a room? Why to consume lights and things like that, where you can simply switch it off because there is nobody moving in the room. Supply side, it's, I think, extremely clear, and the bad news we all have to face is that this winter will not be great in this regard, but obviously everything that is not renewable doesn't come into the equation of CO2 emission reduction, and we've seen a lot of articles on lighting coal power plant again in many parts of Europe. We all have to think that each time we shave a peak, it's probably one coal power plant less that will be on the network, and this is good for the planet. And let's look, of course, at the grid, because I believe in this room there is a lot of grid operators. Grid is as well a fundamental part of this energy equation in two dimensions. First dimension is, of course, by doing all that can be done to reduce the losses, and we know that digitization of the grid allows to reduce losses. The second thing is, if your grid is not digitized, we know that the integration of renewable is more complex and we lose some potential of integration of renewables. So two areas on which, of course, digital is helping a lot grid operators to contribute to the energy equation by doing their own efficiency. That's not the only point. Grids are fundamental part of the balancing of the network between the demand, in which we see a world where there would be a lot of prosumer. What we witness this year in Europe is that the demand for electrification of processes is naturally very high, so means there will be a lot of companies that will become what we call prosumer, producer and consumer of energy. So we need to facilitate this prosumer revolution to balance that properly with the green power generation, and come back to what you explained, Greg, which is basically having at the right moment the visibility of green power and being able to charge what can be charged with green power, like electric cars and things like that. The grid is a fundamental element of this equation, and of course the balancing of all that can only be achieved with digitization and the capacity to transmit the right signal between the demand and between the production of renewable. That's basically where the future resides, because here you build a grid that is first less centralized, much more resilient, and much more favoring the use of green energy at every moment. We are not dreaming that there will be just green energy in the next 10 years, but we dream that we can significantly accelerate the use of green energy to maximize what can be supplied in terms of demand by renewables. If you look basically what does it take between now and 2030 to be in a scenario of 1.5 degrees, okay? First point is a significant increase of non-CO2 emitting power generation, okay? 65, that's not where we are today. We see progression, but that's not where we are today. Second thing, electrification. Directly, today electrification is only at 21%. We think it can move to 30%, and then this would cope in our equation to a 1.5 degree scenario. Of course, energy efficiency at scale, because each time you save energy, you save on the grid, you save on the generation, of course, and then injection of renewable directly into the end user, 12% today, not zero, 12%, moving up to 19%. If we make that, if we cope with those four figures, then we will be on track in Europe and in other parts of the world, but in Europe at least, with a scenario of 1.5 degree. Is it unachievable? Looking at those figures, we all can say it's probably achievable. Now, the question we should ask ourselves is, are we at the right speed doing that? Do we have put in place the digital capabilities to be able to do that? That's the fundamental question we should ask ourselves. So, my conclusion is we know what we should do. I don't think there is any more discussion about do we have the technologies, do we have the demand model, are we able to model what we should do? We know what we should do. The problem is that collectively, today we are not doing it. We don't take enough measures on energy efficiency. We don't accelerate electrification at the demand side level, and we don't digitize enough all what we do to be able to transmit the right signal between the renewable production and between the demand side. So basically my pledge is that we act faster and we move into the 1.5 degree scenario, keeping the resilience of our system. We have the chance, except in Ukraine for reason you have well explained, but we have the chance to have a resilient system in Europe. We need to keep it as an asset, but move much faster on generalizing electricity and renewable. Thank you.
Thank you. Frederick, thank you very much. I just wonder, just listening to what you are saying, I mean, that very strong message, we know what we have to do, we're just not doing it. And by the way, Greg was nodding so much, I thought he was, was going to come and join you on stage again. You mentioned energy efficiency as being the first pillar, if I can put it that way.
It's the fastest one.
The fastest one.
The fastest one.
It seems crazy when we have talked about energy efficiency for so long that we are still having to deal with that. Is that just more education that is needed? Just pushing it forward faster, harder?
No, for me, is leadership, is doing it. Is doing it. There are still many places where fundamental bricks of energy efficiency are not in place. Measuring, automatizing a few things, that's not in place in so many, you know, when you arrive in an hotel, when you arrive in meeting rooms, you just look what's going on, okay, and my eyes are started to be educated with that, is not in place at large.
So it's the leadership, both at company level, political level as well?
Political, leadership at company level, and of course, responsibility of individuals as well.
Absolutely. Frederick, thank you very much. Staying here for questions at the end. Let us